Why are governments and empires presented as vicious beasts in Bible prophecy? Let's look first at some examples. In Daniel chapter 2, King Nebuchadnezzar has a dream in which he sees a frightening statue representing empires and kingdoms that will come on the scene, especially those that have something to do in the future with the nation of Israel. In Daniel 2, verse 1, it says, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams, wherewith his spirit was troubled, and his sleep brake from him. The king was troubled. It was a troubling dream that robbed the king of sleep. There are 4 kingdoms in Daniel 2. This statue or image represents 4 kingdoms made of various kinds of metal. In Daniel 2, verse 44, the Bible says, And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. These 4 kingdoms are man-centered and anti-God. They will one day be destroyed by the smiting stone, and God's kingdom will endure forever and ever. Then in Daniel 7, we see 4 great beasts. One is like a lion and has eagle's wings that were plucked off. A second is like a bear that raised itself up on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, Arouse, devour much flesh. And then there was another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. Then there was the 4th beast. We're told that it was dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly. And of course, when we go to the book of Revelation, we see ravenous and dreadful beasts as well. Why these vicious beasts used to represent governments and empires? Why is that happening? What do they indicate about governments and empires? Simply this. Governments and empires are vicious beasts. They have teeth that rip, tear, and destroy. We are warned that if governments are not restrained, they will do much damage and much harm. Unfortunately, governments are often like cancer. They grow and become ravenous, vicious, and destructive. They do much damage. The American system of government envisioned by our founders calls for limited government. Everything within this nation is handled by the states. Foreign issues are handled by the federal government. When a nation becomes a police state, however, federal law enforcement intrudes itself into local affairs. Local issues are not handled by local police, but rather by the federal government. This is happening in America at the present time. In addition to that, there has been a growing abuse of power against churches. I want to read a number of headlines that clearly illustrate what I'm talking about. Here's one. Police raid churches' drive-in service, issues $500 tickets to entire congregation. Here's another one. Southern California officials impose more coronavirus restrictions for Easter. Parks closed, no drive-in church services. Here's another one. Chicago police break up church funeral service for violating coronavirus stay-at-home order. Here's another one. New York Mayor de Blasio threatens to close churches permanently for having church services. Here's another one. Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher prohibits drive-in religious services during the week of Passover and Easter. Here's another one. California County bans singing in online worship services. Can you imagine that? Here's another one. City demands churches turn over names, addresses, phone numbers. Officials want information for surveillance of members. This is just a short list. It could easily be added to. Even local police are stepping out of their boundaries and becoming abusive. One example is the kidnapping of baby Cyrus. Cyrus Anderson was ripped out of the arms of his mother, Marisa, by officers of the Meridian, Idaho Police Department. And it is all on film. Now, here's the story as told by baby Cyrus's grandfather, Diego Rodriguez. Baby Cyrus was sick and vomiting, so his mother, Marisa, took him to the hospital. The baby was later discharged with a clean bill of health. Apparently, baby Cyrus has an issue where his body cannot fully digest proteins yet, so he has to stick to breast milk. A couple of weeks later, baby Cyrus was again vomiting. Marisa planned to take him to the pediatrician, but the morning of the appointment, Marisa was ill and canceled the appointment. Well, that was a simple cancellation. Cancellations happen all the time. But the nurse practitioner called Child Protection Services and informed them that Cyrus Anderson was an endangered child. Can you imagine that? So 2 Meridian police officers came to the Anderson home, but there was no one home. So they put out a bolo, be on the lookout for. The family was out having dinner together. They were spotted by police at a gas station. Police called for backup. City detectives arrived along with a dozen officers in squad cars. They acted like they were cornering Osama bin Laden or some other bloodthirsty terrorist. They arrested the father and also Marisa, baby Cyrus' mother. Then they body searched Marisa, and it wasn't female officers who were frisking Marisa. It was men. The video shows it all. It was insensitive, improper, and dehumanizing to a young woman. Friends, what's happened to our police? There were many, many cases of police abuse during the lockdowns. I think of the disgraceful George Floyd story. I can also mention Rodney King and many others. I'm not against law enforcement, but I am against police abuse. Such abuse is a betrayal of the order of God, who has established civil government with authority to maintain law and order for the good and well-being of society. But getting back to the story, Marisa did not want to let go of baby Cyrus, but she was overpowered. Men cops, handling a young woman, crying out, "Don't hurt my baby! Don't hurt my baby!" What has this nation come to? What's happening to us? The police said, well, they were going to take baby Cyrus to the hospital. Marisa said, please let me go with my baby. He is allergic to milk. He needs to be breastfed. They promised her that they would allow her to come along, but they lied. She was not allowed to come to the hospital with her baby. It was disgraceful, a disgraceful scenario, all because of an overzealous pediatrician, a control freak social worker, and scores of tyrannical police officers who violently ripped baby Cyrus out of his mother's arms, all done under the guise of a medical emergency. This is what I call medical kidnapping. You can see the whole heart-rending scene on freedomman.org. The baby's grandfather, Diego Rodriguez, is an eloquent defender of our constitutional rights. Pray for him as he tries to make sure something like this doesn't happen again. You know, friends, the whole world is angry at Vladimir Putin. He is invading a small country that wants to remain independent of Russia. Aren't the police in Meridian, Idaho, acting like little Putins? I mean, we have to beware of governments that do not know their limitations. Why don't we trust parents any longer? Why do we think that the state social services system is better for kids than home with mom and dad? Are we afraid mom and dad might teach their kids about God and how He loves them and has a wonderful plan for their lives? Is that what we're afraid of?